This is my true life experience. I was working in a hospital in Nigeria when I mistakenly gave a patient the wrong medication. Two patients had the same first name.
Your medication.
They were placed on beds close to each other.
Emeka, but the file says Chinedu.
And I was responsible for giving medication to one of them. The ward was noisy. Calls were coming in non-stop. Doctors were asking questions. Patients were calling my name. Everything was confusing. That was how the mistake happened. Till today, I still regret it. That night, after closing from work, a coworker called me. She asked me calmly, "Did you give Michael in bed 3 the wrong medication?" I said no. Not because I was lying, but because everything was honestly confusing. I wasn't sure anymore. The next day, I wasn't on duty, so I stayed home. That afternoon while sleeping, I had a dream. The man I gave the medication to was standing right in front of me. He was crying. And he asked me, "Why did you people make me leave this world?" In the dream, I replied, "It's not my fault." I woke up immediately. My heart was racing, my body was shaking, my spirit was not at peace. I picked my phone and called the hospital. That was when I heard it. He had passed away. Hey, my knees went weak, my mind went blank, my soul broke, I blamed myself. I cried for 1 whole month. I couldn't function, I couldn't eat properly, I couldn't sleep. Eventually, I quit my job. I attended his funeral in Lagos. I cried like I had lost my own family member. When I returned home that evening, I opened my door and I saw his coffin lying on my bed. I screamed. I ran out of the house and rushed to a nearby church, hoping to see a pastor. Instead, I met the security man eating. Suddenly, the coffin followed me. I was running, crying, pointing at it, but nobody could see what I was seeing. People started staring at me. Some were calling me mad, some were calling me names. Then a man held my hand, he said, "I can help you." He told me to close my eyes and walk with him. We walked through the market. He placed a leaf around my neck like a necklace. Then he said, "You can open your eyes now." The coffin disappeared. I was shaking in fear. I wanted to follow him home, but he had a wife, so I couldn't. I told him everything that happened. He told me to go and apologize to the boy's family. I went, his mother cried.
My
She
child, I
forgave me.
forgive you.
Thank you,
She
Mama.
held me and
It
said,
means everything.
"My daughter,
Go in
it's okay."
peace.
That was the first time my heart felt peace again. I went home. I wore the leaf around my neck every day. I didn't care what people said about my appearance. The man said it should stay for 7 days, but it stayed on my neck for 11 days. When it dried up, I removed it and hung it on a nail behind my door. After that, every time I stepped outside my room, I would see the coffin floating in the air. But inside my room, there was nothing. I became trapped in my own house. I couldn't go out. I started ordering food and groceries. I was stuck. One day, I saw a post online about spiritual leaves. A comment from a certain man caught my attention. I sent him a message and explained everything. He prayed with me. He told me to be bold, fearless, strong. He said I should be angry in spirit towards the ghost. He instructed me to go to the market, buy 2 different leaves, add local salt, and bathe with it on my day of birth. He gave me 7 psalm scriptures to pray. I did everything, and that was when the haunting stopped. God bless you, Jay. Someone I have never met, someone who refused to meet me, someone who helped me from a distance. If not for him, I honestly don't know what would have happened to me.
Once upon a time,
There lived a man who treated his wife with wickedness. Not because she was stubborn, not because she was disobedient, but simply because she came from the village. His name was Jedi, and his wife Shadi was extremely beautiful. The kind of beauty that did not beg for attention yet commanded it effortlessly. Her skin glowed like morning light. Her eyes were calm and deep, and her smile carried a warmth that could soften even the hardest of hearts. But to Jedi, none of that mattered. To him, his wife lacked class.
Look at them,
She
Shadi,
lacked
the
the
fashionable
charisma he
city
admired in
women.
other
Their
women.
style, their confidence, it's
To
inspiring.
Jedi, Shadi was just a village girl, and he never failed to remind her. He believed he had done her a favor by marrying her. He believed he rescued her from village life and brought her into the big city. And because of that belief, he treated her like she owed him everything. At home, Jedi spoke to Shadi as though she were a child who never quite got anything right.
You think you can just stand there and
Why do you
defy me?
talk like that?
After all I've done
Why
for
do you
look at
dress
me.
like this? Can't you behave like a proper woman? Every word chipped away at her spirit. In public, he corrected her unnecessarily. In private, he humiliated her effortlessly. Sometimes when guests came over, Jedi would deliberately bring up Shadi's village background. She didn't grow up with all these things, he would say, laughing. You know, village life is very different from city life. The guests would laugh awkwardly, and Shadi would lower her eyes in shame. One day, one of Jedi's friends could no longer tolerate it. He stood up and rebuked him firmly. This thing you're doing is not right. That woman is your wife. You don't ridicule your wife in front of people. The room fell silent, but Jedi laughed it off. Relax, he said. She knows I'm joking. Besides, if I don't correct her, who will? Shadi said nothing. She never defended herself, she never shouted, she never fought back. She only swallowed her pain and carried it quietly, like a burden she believed she was born to bear. That night as Shadi lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, tears rolled silently down the sides of her face. She wondered when loving her husband became a crime, and when being from the village became a curse. She prayed quietly, asking God not for happiness, but for strength. But Jedi was not done with her. Whenever Shadi spoke in gatherings, he interrupted her mid-sentence.
Thought, no dear,
No.
it's this way.
That's not how you say it, he would laugh. You people from the village always mix things up. Even when everyone understood her perfectly, Jedi insisted on correcting her, making her feel small, like a child learning to speak for the first time. Whenever visitors came, Jedi made Shadi serve food and drinks, while he moved around admiring other women. See how elegant she is, he would say loudly.
Look at them, Shadi, the fashionable city women.
That's what class
Their
looks
style,
like.
their confidence, it's inspiring.
Shadi stood there holding trays, feeling invisible in her own home. Jedi often compared her to women he admired, sometimes directly to her face, sometimes loud enough for her to hear. Each comparison was a reminder that in his eyes she would never be enough. Day after day, Shadi learned how to shrink herself. She spoke less. She smiled less. She laughed only when spoken to. At night, while Jedi slept soundly beside her, Shadi lay awake in the darkness, wondering how love had slowly turned into humiliation. But she never voiced these questions. She had been taught that endurance was a virtue. Unbeknownst to her, Jedi had already given his heart elsewhere. He was a chronic cheat,
It's all coming together.
chasing women
Excellent,
he
I knew
believed
it
were
would.
bold,
We'll celebrate
fashionable, and city-bred. Women who laughed loudly. Women who moved like they owned the world. one woman stood above the rest. Her name was Tala. Bold, outspoken, confident. Everything Jedi believed his wife was not. Night after night, while Shadi lay alone in their bedroom, Jedi sat in the guest room whispering into his phone, smiling at messages not meant for his wife. Sometimes Shadi heard his laughter through the walls. It pierced her heart like a knife. What Shadi did not know was that Tala was not a stranger. She was a friend. A woman who had eaten in their home. A woman who laughed with her. A woman Shadi trusted. Shadi poured her heart out to Tala many times. She told her how lonely she felt.
What do I do now?
How her husband mocked her. How she cried silently at night. And Tala listened, nodded, comforted her, then wiped away fake tears and smiled slightly. One evening, Shadi returned home earlier than expected from the market. She had bought ingredients to prepare Jedi's favorite meal, just hoping that kindness might soften his heart. As she opened the door, laughter filled the living room. A familiar laughter. Her heart skipped. She stepped inside and froze. Jedi was kissing Tala, right there in their living room. The items in Shadi's hand slipped and crashed to the floor. Silence. Jedi sighed in irritation as though she had been an inconvenience. Shadi, he said coldly, "We need to talk." Her legs trembled. She waited for Tala to speak, to deny it, to say it wasn't what it looked like. But Tala said nothing. That silence was louder than any insult Jedi had ever thrown at her. That night, Jedi packed Shadi's clothes into 2 boxes. He did not shout. He did not apologize. He did not look back. "Go back to where you came from," he said. Shadi walked out of the house with nothing but her boxes and a heart that had finally understood betrayal. Within days, Tala moved into Shadi's home. She replaced everything. The curtains, the plates, even the bed sheets. Anything that carried Shadi's scent was thrown away. Shadi stood outside broken as the door closed behind her. And that was how her silence became her exit. After Shadi walked away from the house she once called home, she did not know where she was going. She only knew she could not go back. The city lights felt colder that night. Cars passed her without slowing. People hurried by, unaware that a woman's life had just been broken in two, with nowhere else to turn. Shadi returned to the only place that had ever loved her without conditions. The village. The same village Jedi mocked. The same village he called backward. The same village he believed she should be ashamed of. Her elder sister welcomed her without questions. No lectures, no blame, only open arms. For the first time in a long while, Shadi slept peacefully. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, Shadi began to heal. She started helping at the local health center.
All right, let's get started. How is everyone feeling today?
She learned new skills. She grew stronger.
Good, I'll check your blood pressure.
Not louder, not bitter, just stronger. Pain changed her, but it did not poison her. Back in the city, things were falling apart. Jedi believed replacing Shadi would erase his guilt. He believed Tala was the upgrade he deserved. But Tala was not calm. She was not gentle. She did not endure silently. She questioned him. She argued loudly. She spent recklessly. The house that once felt peaceful
Jedi, you
became
can't just
noisy
sit there.
and
We have to talk
restless.
about this now. How
The
can you be
woman he
so
chased
calm?
for
I'm screaming and you just
became the
ignore
storm
me.
he could not escape. And slowly, regret crept in. Not because he loved Chadi, but because life without her was harder than he imagined. One afternoon, fate crossed their paths. Jedi saw
I'm
Shadi
finally
again.
at peace with everything.
Not in the village,
I'm glad to hear
not
that.
in rags,
It's a new chapter.
not in shame. She was in the city, elegant, composed, unbothered. She walked with quiet confidence, her head held high, her eyes clear. Beside her stood a man, respectful, calm, attentive. A man who listened when she spoke. A man who treated her presence like a privilege. Jedi froze. The woman he once called True Village now looked like someone he could never reach again. He tried to speak to her, tried to explain, tried to apologize.
But I must explain.
But Shadi did not argue. She did not insult him. She did not even raise her voice. She simply looked at him and smiled politely. That smile hurt more than words ever could, because it said everything. It said, I survived you, it said. I healed without you, it said. You no longer matter. Jedi returned home restless. Tala noticed the change, the distance, the silence. Arguments became frequent. Respect disappeared completely. The love he destroyed was replaced with chaos. Meanwhile, Shadi continued to grow. She built a life rooted in dignity. She learned that love does not mock, that marriage does not humiliate, that endurance without respect is not virtue, it is suffering. One evening, alone in his room, Jedi sat quietly, haunted by memories, not of Shadi's beauty, but of her patience, not of her silence, but of the peace she carried into his life. And only then did he understand. He did not lose her because she was from the village. He lost her because he failed to value her. But by then, it was too late. Shadi had moved on. Her heart had healed. Her future was no longer tied to regret. And Jedi was left alone, with money, with noise, with emptiness.
Once upon a time in the bustling city of Albury lived a woman who bought a house for her mother, only to take it back and hand it to her boyfriend. Her name was Chamaka, and she was not only successful but generous to a fault. Chamaka worked tirelessly and made sure that her widowed mother was well taken care of. A woman who spent her entire life selling vegetables in the market to train her child in school. So when Chamaka finally made it in life, the first thing she did was to buy her mother a house. It was a beautiful house in Wari, with white walls, tiled floors, and a small garden in front for her mother to plant her favorite vegetables. Chamaka felt so fulfilled when she handed the keys to her mother and watched her weep like a child. Years passed, and her mother lived peacefully in the house. She was finally comfortable after living in a dilapidated home for most of her life. However, just when she thought life had finally smiled on her, her daughter Chamaka informed her that she had to vacate the house. Her mother stared at her in disbelief. Vacate? Her mother repeated, her voice trembling. Is the house no longer mine? Chamaka, is this house not mine again? Tears poured down her face. Chamaka could not look her in the eyes. She stared at the table and informed her mother that she needed the house for something very important. The old woman's knees buckled as she slowly sat on the chair she loved so much. For what, Chamaka? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Chamaka swallowed hard and informed her mother that she needed the house for love. That was how her mother learned about Kobe, the man who had promised to marry Chamaka. Kobe had heard about the house she bought for her mother and pleaded with her to give him the house to start his business. He revealed that the house was in the best location for the kind of business he had in mind. Kobe was a smooth talker. He had a way with words. He told Chamaka that starting his business in that house would position him better to secure big deals. He went on to say that the house was too big for her mother alone. He cunningly framed his demand as concern, suggesting that the house was too much for an old woman to manage. He advised Chamaka to rent a smaller apartment for her mother, one that would be easier to clean and navigate. And Chamaka, deeply in love, saw reasoning in what he said. After all, Kobe said, "When I make money, I'll have enough to marry you and even buy another house for your mother." Chamaka smiled like a lost goat. Within weeks, she rented a one-bedroom apartment in Oji for her mother. She promised it was temporary, not knowing she was making the worst mistake of her life. "Mommy, it's just for a while," she said, avoiding her mother's eyes. "Once Kobe settles, everything will be fine." Her mother packed quietly. She did not shout. She did not curse. She only cried softly as she left the house she had finally called home. Kobe moved in immediately. He repainted the walls, changed the locks, brought in signboards, and told neighbors that he was the owner of the property. He used his business as a reason to make Chamaka sign over the house ownership to him. Then he proposed. He promised to begin wedding plans once his business stabilized. Chamaka was overwhelmed with joy. She imagined wedding bells, prosperity, and a future with a man she believed loved her deeply. That December, as Christmas approached, Kobe came to her one evening with excitement written all over his face. "My mother wants to meet you properly. He said she wants you to spend Christmas with us in the village." Chamaka's heart skipped. This meant family, this meant marriage was close. But there was a problem. She had already promised her mother that she would spend Christmas with her in Oji. It would be their first Christmas together since she moved out of the house. Her mother had been counting the days. When Chamaka told Kobe, he reminded her that she had spent countless Christmas holidays with her mother already. "Just one Christmas away won't make much of a difference," he said. He told her his mother could not wait to see her, the woman after his own heart. Chamaka melted. She canceled on her mother. Her mother remained silent on the phone before finally speaking. "Since your father died, I have lived all alone. Your brother has not returned for over 5 years. I have no one else to spend Christmas with." She did not argue. She only warned her daughter to be careful of Kobe. Chamaka took offense. Her heart hardened. She chose love, and she went to the village. From the moment Chamaka arrived, she was treated like royalty. Kobe's mother hugged her tightly and called her my daughter. His so-called sister praised her endlessly, commenting on how beautiful she was and thanking her for standing by their brother. They cooked together. They laughed together. They prayed together. Every day they reminded her how lucky Kobe was to have a woman like her. "You are a rare woman," his mother would say repeatedly. "Any woman who can sacrifice so much for a man deserves great respect." Those words sank deep into Chamaka's heart. She stayed with them for a whole week, and they treated her like a queen. His mother even introduced her to friends as her son's wife. Chamaka could barely contain her excitement. Her love for Kobe grew stronger as she saw how much his family appeared to love and cherish her. She even went online to make a post advising young girls to pray for good mothers-in-law. She praised Kobe's mother for raising a good man, and for pampering her like a baby. Many congratulated her in the comments, praying to have the same blessing. Chamaka basked in the euphoria of her illusion, completely unaware that she was celebrating the very people quietly preparing her downfall. she did not call her mother once. Back in Oji, her mother spent Christmas alone in the one-bedroom apartment Shamaka had rented for her. She cooked a small pot of rice and set 2 plates on the table out of habit after staring at them for a long time. She quietly packed one away. She ate alone, tears streaming down her face as she listened to neighbors celebrating with their families. Her heart was heavy when she prayed for one daughter to find true happiness. She did not like Kobe. She believed he had ulterior motives, but she had no proof, so she prayed and waited. Meanwhile, Shamaka laughed loudly in the village as Kobe's sister told childhood stories. How Kobe always talked his way out of trouble. How he could convince anyone to give him whatever he wanted. "This my brother can talk," the woman said proudly. "Even when he is wrong, he makes you feel like you are the one at fault." Shamaka laughed, ignoring the warning signs right in front of her. When they returned to the city, everything seemed normal at first. Kobe still called her my wife. He still held her hand in public. But whenever she mentioned fixing a wedding date, he accused her of rushing him. Weeks turned into months. The business never started. Kobe moved fully into the house. Then his mother and the woman he called his sister moved in too, claiming their village house collapsed during a storm. Slowly, Shamaka became a visitor by appointment in the house she bought. One afternoon, she went unannounced with Kobe's favorite soup. She walked in and froze. Kobe was kissing another woman. Her heart shattered until she realized the woman was the same sister. The truth came out. The woman was not his sister. She was his wife. They had been married for 8 years. The child Shamaka bought gifts for was their son. Everything was planned, from the gym meeting, to the smiles, to the prayers, to the house. Kobe laughed and admitted it. "You were easy," he mocked, desperate to be loved. Shamaka ran to her mother and collapsed into her arms, broken. But her mother had a secret, a hidden security camera. Every confession was recorded, every insult, every plan. The court watched the footage, the laughter stopped, the judge ruled in Shamaka's favor. The house was returned. Kobe and his wife were convicted for fraud. Shamaka moved her mother back into the house, and she learned a painful truth. Any man who asked you to betray your mother will one day betray you in ways you never imagined. Love without wisdom is dangerous. Generosity without discernment is self-destruction. A mother's warning is not jealousy. It is protection. Love that demands blindness is not love. It is a trap.
It all began when I hosted a woman I met online. She was a teacher, soft-spoken, very calm. One afternoon, she called me and said she was bored. I told her to come over. She stayed with me for 4 days. At first, everything was normal. We shopped, we cooked, we laughed. She complained of pain, stomach pain, back pain. I offered medicine, she refused. That night, we were watching a movie. Then she became quiet. I heard a strange sound like water in someone's mouth. Suddenly she collapsed. I rushed her to the hospital. The doctor said she had a stroke. She fell into a coma. The nurses asked for her ID. I didn't know her full name. I remembered her NHS card, but her bag was at home. I rushed back, her bag was gone. Her phone was missing. I called no answer. The next morning, the hospital called me. She was dead. And that was when everything changed. I thought it was over. I was wrong. Because after her death, she came back to me in my dreams. After she died, the hospital wanted an autopsy. They needed her family. I had nobody to call. That night the dream started. I saw her crying. She pointed at faces I didn't know. Every night the dreams returned. Then one night I woke up. She was standing beside the sofa. I asked her why she came back. She didn't speak. She pointed at the sofa. I searched. I found her phone hidden. I charged it. A call came in. It was her brother. Her family arrived. The police were informed. Before the burial, they asked me to perform rites. I washed her feet. I prayed that night as the coffin closed. I saw her smile. Even now, sometimes I feel the presence. Watching. Listening. Always tell your family where you are going. Do not travel in secret. Because when death comes, the spirits remember everything.
Once upon a time, there lived a nanny whose hidden mission was to corrupt the minds of children. Her name was Rieti. She came highly recommended. She was described as God-fearing, patient, well-educated, and excellent with children. To anyone watching, she was the perfect caregiver. Mr. and Mrs. Day were busy professionals. Their lives were filled with travel meetings and long days away from home. Trusting the glowing recommendations, they placed the care of their only son, Damiola, into Rieti's hands. They believed she would raise him with love, discipline, and godly values. They were wrong. Behind Rieti's calm smile lived a bitterness shaped by years of resentment. She had worked in many wealthy homes, watching parents come and go while nannies did the real parenting. Over time, she convinced herself that rich children were spoiled, undeserving, and already ruined. Instead of protecting them, she decided to corrupt them. From her first week in the Day household, Rieti began carefully. She never shouted. She never looked angry. She waited until the parents were away, until the house was quiet. Then she would sit Damiola on her lap and whisper to him. She started small, eye-rolling, muttering insults, talking back. Each act of disobedience was rewarded with sweet cartoons and quiet praise. Slowly, the words grew darker. She taught him to insult his parents, to laugh when his mother cried, to speak to his father with contempt. One afternoon, Rieti leaned close and whispered. The words meant to wound deeply. The boy hesitated, and Rieti's smile vanished. She grabbed his arm and warned him never to tell anyone. Fear sealed his lips. Damiola's behavior changed rapidly. The once loving home became tense and cold. His parents blamed stress, school, the media, everything, except the nanny.
Give it here.
When Mrs. Day finally restricted movies and online content, Riet simply changed tactics. She stopped all the insults and replaced them with suggestions.
You listen to me very carefully.
She made Damiola feel smarter than his parents, superior to them, convincing him they were jealous, controlling, and holding him back. Things worsened until Mrs. Day's sister Adanik came to visit. She was observant, spiritually sensitive. She noticed immediately that something was wrong. She spent time with Damihola, prayed with him, corrected him gently. And for the first time in months, the boy softened. Riet panicked. She could feel her control slipping. So she planted lies in Damiola's mind, convincing him that his aunt hated him and wanted him sent away. Then she set a trap. Riet accused Adanik of sleeping with Mr. Day. She secretly planted evidence to support the lie. The accusation tore the family apart. Adanik was thrown out, Mr. Day was sent away. And Riet stood quietly, believing she had won. But Rieti underestimated Mrs. Day. Unknown to her, a necklace she had once been gifted was a hidden recording device. When Mrs. Day retrieved it and listened, the truth shattered her heart. She heard Rhea coaching her son, threatening him, mocking the family, boasting about how easily children could be manipulated. The police were called. Riyad was arrested for child abuse, manipulation, blackmail, and false accusations. As she was dragged away screaming, Damiola broke down in tears. For the first time, he understood the damage done to his heart. The child was taken to therapy. The family reconciled. And Mrs. Day learned a painful lesson she would never forget. Never outsource the heart of your child without watching closely. Some smiles hide poison.
She was just a village girl, trying to fetch water. But what she found that evening by the river would change her life forever. It had just rained. The soil was soft beneath her feet, and the air smelled of wet leaves and smoke from distant cooking fires. Ajiri walked alone through the narrow bush path, an empty clay pot balanced carefully on her head. She had waited for the rain to stop before going to the stream. She didn't like walking that late in the evening, but the house needed water. As she got closer to the river, she heard something strange. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't thunder. It sounded like someone crying. Ajiri stopped. She listened. The forest was quiet. Then she heard it again, softer this time, broken, full of pain. Her heart began to beat faster. Slowly, Ajiri removed the pot from her head and placed it on the ground. She followed the sound, each step careful, her breath shallow. And that was when she saw her. A woman lay at the edge of the river, half in the water, half on the sand. Her long black hair clung to her skin, wet and tangled. Her body was covered in blood and deep cuts, and her arms trembled as she tried to pull herself up. Ajiri rushed forward. "Auntie, are you hurt?" she asked. The woman turned her face slightly, and that was when Ajiri saw it. The woman had no legs. Instead, where her legs should have been, there was a long silver tail, shining faintly in the fading light, trapped tightly in torn fishing nets. Ajiri froze. She had heard stories of river women, water spirits, mermaids. But this wasn't a story. This was real, and this woman was dying. Ajiri knelt beside her, shaking. The woman's breathing was weak. Her skin was cold. "Help me," the woman whispered. I don't know what to do." Ajiri replied, fear filling her voice. "Don't run," the woman said softly. "Just listen." Her eyes were gentle, but filled with pain. "My name is Nyasa," she said. "I was betrayed not by humans, but by my own sisters." Ajiri swallowed hard. Nyasa continued, her voice fading in and out. "We lived in the deep waters. We were meant to protect one another. But they gave me up to the river gods because I refused to give them my child." She coughed violently, and blood stained her lips. "I ran, I swam, I hid. but they caught me. Her voice dropped to a whisper, and now I will die. Ajiri felt a cold chill run down her spine. You have a child, she asked quietly. Nyasa nodded weakly. With great effort, she reached beside her and pulled forward a small bundle wrapped in seaweed. Inside was a baby girl, tiny, silent, breathing softly. Her skin shimmered faintly, and where her legs should have been, there was the soft beginning of a tail. Ajiri gasped. She is mine, Nyasa said, but I cannot raise her. Ajiri shook her head slowly, overwhelmed. Why me? She whispered. Nyasa looked at her with tired eyes. Because you stopped, she said. Others would have run away, but you came closer. Tears filled Ajiri's eyes. Please, Nyasa begged. Raise her, hide her, love her. She took Ajiri's hand tightly, and when she turns 15, bring her back to this river. Ajiri's voice broke. I'm just a poor girl, I sell firewood. I don't even know how to raise a child. Nyasa managed a weak smile. She is more human than you think. She has a heart, she has a soul. And she needs love more than power. With her last strength, Nyasa pressed a glowing shell into Ajiri's palm. When the time comes, she whispered, give her this, it will help her remember. The shell was warm, pulsing like a heartbeat. Please, Nyasa said, tears sliding down her face. Do not let her grow in hate, let her grow in truth. Her voice trembled, and if you betray her, the river will know. Then slowly Nyasa's body dissolved into the water, softly, quietly, as if she had never been there. Only the baby remained. Ajiri named the baby Nimi. Before dawn broke, she wrapped the child tightly and left the river behind. She did not return to a village. Instead, she traveled far away to the edge of a quiet forest where very few people passed. There she built a small hut close enough to a stream for water, but hidden from curious eyes. Whenever people asked about the child, Ajiri told them she had taken in an orphan from another town. No one questioned her story. Nimi grew up quiet and gentle. She rarely cried, and she watched more than she spoke from the very beginning. Ajiri knew this child was different. By the age of 4, Nimi could hold her breath longer than any child Ajiri had ever seen. By 6, fish swam closer whenever she stood near the stream. By 8, she began to speak in her sleep, using words Ajiri could not understand. Fear slowly grew in Ajiri's heart, but her love grew even stronger. Nimi became the daughter Ajiri never thought she would have. She taught her how to cook and clean, how to sing old village songs, and how to pray before sleeping. But there were strict rules. Nimi was never allowed to swim, never allowed to step into deep water, and never allowed to stare at her reflection for too long. Sometimes Nimi would ask why she could not go to the river like other children. Ajiri would smile and tell her that the water was not safe for her, and Nimi believed her without question. Hidden beneath Ajiri's sleeping mat was the glowing shell Nyasa had given her. Every few nights Ajiri would take it out and stare at it. It always glowed softly and felt warm in her hand, like a living heart. That is how it remained, until one night, just days before Nimi's 15th birthday, when the shell suddenly went cold. There was no light and no warmth. Ajiri sat awake in the darkness, staring at it as Nyasa's words echoed in her mind. When she turns 15, bring her back. Ajiri pressed the shell against her chest and cried silently until morning. She could not imagine giving Nimi away. This child was her joy, her purpose, and her reason to keep living. At dawn, Ajiri went to wake Nimi, but the sleeping mat was empty. She called her name, but there was no answer. The hut door stood open outside. Ajiri saw wet footprints leading away from the hut and straight toward the river. Fear tore through her chest as she followed the trail through the trees. When she reached the riverbank, the water was calm, far too calm. On the sand lay the shell, glowing once again. The river began to hum softly in that moment. Nimi dove into the water without ever being taught how to swim. Her body remembered what her mind did not. Her legs transformed into silver. Her tail returned and she moved faster than any fish, sinking into the river's darkness. She did not know where she was going, only that something was calling her deep beneath the surface. She saw them, 3 mermaids, beautiful, cold, and watching her closely. They told her they had been waiting and revealed that she was Nasa's child. When Nimi accused them of betrayal, they did not deny it. They admitted they had led the river gods to her mother. Above the water, Ajiri was crying. Without hesitation, she jumped into the river. Though she could not swim well, love pulled her forward. She went deeper than she ever had before until she saw Nimi glowing beneath the water. Ajiri reached out, calling her name. The water did not pull her down. The mermaids watched in confusion as Nimi declared that Ajiri was hers, even if she was not of the river. The shell in Nimi's hand began to glow brighter as the water swirled around them. Nimi thought of her mother Nyasa and of the pain that had been passed down through generations. Then she made a choice. She loosened her grip and dropped the shell into the river. She said she would not continue the cycle of pain and that she chose forgiveness. The river grew quiet. The mermaids watched in silence, holding Ajiri's hand. Nimi swam upward toward the light, leaving the river behind. Nimi dove into the river, her heart pounding. The water closed over her like a dark blanket. Her legs melted into a silver tail. She moved fast, deeper into the river. The river seemed alive, singing softly. 3 mermaids appeared cold, watching her carefully. "You're Nyasa's child," one said. Nimi's chest tightened. She remembered her mother's words. "I am her daughter," she whispered. A glowing figure appeared in the water. It was Nyasa. Her long black hair floated like silk. Her eyes were soft but full of sorrow. "Nimi," she said, "you came back." Nimi swam closer, tears filled her eyes. "Mama," she said, "I never forgot you." Nyasa reached out, her hand passing through Nimi's. A gentle warmth filled her. "You were brave. You listened. You kept my gift safe," Nyasa said. Nimi held the glowing shell in her hand. It pulsed like a heartbeat. "I will honor you, Mama. I will protect others, just like you wanted," Nimi said. Nyasa smiled. "The river is calm. The past is forgiven. Love is stronger than fear." The mermaids watched silently, nodding in respect. Nimi released the shell. It sank slowly into the water. "I forgive you," she whispered. The river glowed softly, and Nyasa's spirit slowly faded into the light. Nimi's tail vanished. She became fully human again. She swam to the surface and saw Ajiri waiting. "Mama!" Nimi cried, running into her arms. Ajiri hugged her tightly. "You're safe. You're mine." We walked back to their hut. The river behind them was calm, peaceful. Nimi carried Nyasa's memory in her heart. She knew her mother's love would always guide her. From that day on, Nimi and Ajiri lived in peace. The river no longer called her with fear. Its sound of love, of courage, and of a mother's blessing.